If sunlight is the best disinfectant, why do so many selective colleges and universities prefer the shade? That is the topic of today's video. My name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. You can learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process on my website, which is collegemeister.com. Well, it is spring and it is the month of April, and so in the coming days and weeks, many colleges, particularly those at the most selective perches of American higher education, will be finalizing their first year entering classes. And thus by mid-May at the latest, but frankly, usually by early May, the most selective colleges and universities have basically locked in 97, 98, 99% of their class for the upcoming fall. And therefore, it would go to figure that if a college believes in transparency, it could very well, by mid to late May at the latest, begin to share, or if not fully share, their entire data set as it relates to the types of students accepted and what their backgrounds numbers were, whether it be their GPAs, the types of courses they took in high school, their SAT and or ACT scores, as well as where they're from, what curricula they studied under, so on and so forth. All of that information is readily available for the most selective college and universities in mid to late May. Will it be shared, though, is the big question. In the past, many years ago when I started doing this, colleges would be very proud to share their admission statistics starting in May and, of course, by June and July for the class that they just accepted to the class that would be starting in August and or September. That no longer is the case. There seems to be a dearth of sunlight being shown or shined on the actual selection process at many colleges and universities. And the question we all have to ask is why? Why is this the case? Now, again, it is April and many classes are still being cobbled together. Many students have not yet deposited by the typical May 1st deposit deadline. And because of FAFSA's implosion during the 2023-2024 admission cycle, a good number of colleges will push back their reply by date to after May 1st. So it could be May 15th, it could be June 1st. But the most selective colleges and universities will not need to do so because there are so many students who would want to sign on the dotted line and frankly give their own blood in order to attend these institutions that most of these colleges will still be pretty filled up on their first year entering classes by May 1st. And therefore, again, there's no reason why these colleges and universities cannot share unless there's something the colleges don't want to share. Unless there's something that they don't want sunlight to be shining on. And I'm talking in particular at this point about the statistics that follows. I want to see statistics related to what the students are like who were accepted with test scores versus the students who were accepted without test scores. I want to know where they're from. I want to know, in some cases, their payment status. Are they full pay students versus are they financial aid students? I want to know what percentage of these are early versus regular. I want to know, again, the quality of their curriculum. I want to know all of this. I want to know their demographic breakdown in terms of male, female, black, white, brown, purple, green, you name it. I want to know it all. I want to see if there's a huge difference between, or even a small difference, between the types of students that colleges accept via test scores versus those that come in not through test scores. Particularly at the most selective level, the minority of students are still getting accepted via test optional. And as we know from the news headlines, many of the selective colleges are seriously reconsidering whether or not they want to remain test optional, and a handful of colleges have returned to test required for the 2024-2025 admission cycle. But these colleges have access to all of these data sets, all of this information, and they could share it with the general public today. They need to share it, in my opinion, so that we as the general public, and therefore students and parents, can be savvy consumers of the selective colleges and universities that we are considering when we are having students apply to them. And so I really am most focused on that information. Now, with that said, there are some amazing all-stars in this field in terms of institutions that do give a healthy amount, a very impressive amount of statistics. Most notably in recent years, University of Illinois always gave very good admission statistics. I don't know if that will continue because their former lead is now in University of Georgia. So maybe University of Georgia will now become more of a statistical leader in terms of sharing stats about not just who gets accepted when, but also for what majors, which I find fascinating and very helpful at those institutions that have different types of acceptance rates or expectations depending on the school or major within the university the student is applying to. Georgia Tech is another school that has traditionally been pretty open about sharing information so that students and parents and counselors can make really wise decisions as to whether or not a particular college is a safety, a possible, or reach, and when to apply. So I really want to give props to schools, again, like Illinois in the past and Georgia Tech. But let's be honest, those are very selective colleges, but those are not the very most selective colleges. The leaders in terms of selectivity, I am looking at you. I hope that your admissions and enrollment leadership teams can be leaders and really share more information this year than ever before as it relates to who is getting accepted and how. Because that's going to help all interested parties make accurate calculations related to whether or not a school is a safety, a possible, or reach. And therefore, students and parents, I think, can enjoy the college admissions process just a little bit more than they otherwise would when they feel like they are flying without a radar. So again, I'm a huge proponent of sunlight being the best disinfectant, but I am sad to report that the vast majority of American higher education institutions that are highly selective for first-year applicants prefer to live in the shade. And they've gotten away with it for so long because nobody is truly holding them to account. Now, most of these institutions, of course, do report more statistics every year during the census period in September when the classes are actually now fully matriculated. And that's usually when we get more information about acceptance rates, ED, EA versus regular, but also demographic breakdown. And I mean every which way that are reported. Now, there are some numbers that are rarely, if ever, reported, and these include religion, but some numbers that do get reported every year, of course, are racial breakdowns in the United States, because race holds a special place in American history. And in some countries, of course, like France, others, racial breakdown would be a big no-no because of the culture of those countries. But in the United States, racial breakdown, sex breakdown, these are things that regularly get fully fleshed out and reported each September. But I don't see why these amazing research institutions, some of which are large, some of which are small, and of course their brethren in the liberal arts scene, the small liberal arts colleges, these are highly acclaimed institutions who have amazing statisticians, at least in their math departments, if not in other departments, of course their finance departments. They are completely capable of sharing with the general public different bits of information, a lot of information, and they rarely share this information. Again, overall class breakdown in terms of states and countries represented, and also gender or sex breakdown and racial breakdown are pretty standard. But beyond that, now that we are living sort of in a two-tier application system where many colleges will remain test optional, and therefore a huge proportion of students are getting accepted via their test scores, by sharing their test scores, and of course all the other information too. And a huge number, in some cases the majority, but definitely a healthy minority of students are getting accepted via the test optional path, which means they're being considered in all different ways except for their test scores. It would be very valuable if now these schools continue to pursue this sort of two-track system for the colleges and their enrollment and admissions leadership to just come out with it. Come out and shine light on who is getting accepted within these two cohorts, because these two cohorts are likely different. How? I don't know. I don't want to make any assumptions. I have obviously seen anecdotally from my own experience with students and my colleagues and talking this out, who is getting accepted, how and where and why. But these are still relatively small samples. I'm the first to admit that. So I want to see the data. I want to see the quantitative and qualitative data that the college has and all these colleges have. And I will do a whole video very happily complimenting the first college that comes out and really provides us a nitty-gritty granular breakdown of their accepted students and those accepted under the regime of submitting their scores versus the regime of not submitting their scores. I'd also be fascinated if a college could ever share statistics of just the overall student population who applied, so that we could all look at the overall types of students who are applying to College X, then see the overall complexion in all which ways, shapes, and forms of the students who are getting accepted to College X. And then, like I said, break it down from the perspective of when they're getting accepted in the cycle, whether it's ED, EA, priority, ED2, regular, maybe even waitlist. But then also, break it down based off of those who submitted scores and how do they look different? How do they behave differently? Are there some characteristics of those who are submitting test scores that's very unlike those who are not submitting test scores? Or maybe they're very similar. Maybe they're very similar populations and the test scores are just almost like a small, slight thing that is almost negligible. But I doubt that's the case. And therefore, I could be wrong, I could be right, but we need to see all this information. And so why I made this video today is I just want to promote sunlight. I want to encourage sunlight because sunlight is the best disinfectant. The more light that can be shined on this process, the cleaner this process can be for everyone. The shadier the process is, the more stress will rise in the student and parent populations most impacted by enduring and going through and navigating the college admissions process and feeling, as I've mentioned in previous videos, that they need to apply to double digits worth numbers of schools. But also I think it benefits the colleges and universities to just be truly transparent about who they are and be out and proud about what they value and what they're looking for in students. And also sometimes seeing the statistics internally is one thing, but sharing it externally may help institutions, maybe reevaluate their values and whether or not they're doing things the way that they would want to be doing them if they had to share the information about the way in which they really operate. So I think there's healthiness in just being open and honest with the public and with oneself and what one's institution about what one really is. So I think that's extremely healthy as an individual, but it's also extremely healthy as an institution. And for our society, the more openness, transparency, freedom to examine and question, the better. And I think these colleges will get stronger for doing so. And that's why, again, I encourage them to do it, because I think that not only will students and parents be savvier applicants and parents of applicants, but we as a general population and our relationship with higher education institutions in the United States of America, I think will become healthier and more trust will be established at a time when a lot of trust has been lost in recent years in higher education. I think more trust will be built as a result of colleges actually being leaders and sharing as much information as humanly possible. And they have it all, of course, at their disposal with the general public so that we can all know what's really going on in these admissions offices and plan accordingly. So that's today's video. My name again is Craig Meister. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my channel. You might also want to work with me one-on-one to help you navigate the college admissions process in the healthiest, happiest manner possible. To do so, go to collegemeister.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and most importantly, stay stress-free throughout the entire college admissions process.